From the outside, the Frost family always seemed to carry on, no matter the storms that swirled around them. But behind closed doors, a new battle has erupted, one that no fan saw coming. It wasn't Rashida calling Kirk out this time, nor another rumor of infidelity lighting up the blogs. Instead, it was Kirk's own son stepping forward, unleashing years of buried frustration and demanding answers about the most explosive scandal of them all, the Jasmine drama. What began as whispers of betrayal years ago has now resurfaced with an even sharper edge, tearing into the family's fragile peace and forcing them to face questions they hoped had been buried forever. According to insiders close to the situation, the confrontation wasn't calm or measured. It was raw, fiery, and filled with the kind of accusations that can split blood ties down the middle. Imagine the tension. A son staring into his father's eyes, voice trembling with rage, demanding to know why their family had to live under the shadow of humiliation. Why the Jasmine scandal wasn't just a rumor to him but a wound that never healed. Sources say Kirk tried to keep his composure, brushing off the questions as if they were too heavy to carry. But his son wasn't having it. The air grew thick with resentment, the weight of years crashing down in a single moment. Fans are shocked, wondering how deep this fracture goes and whether this confrontation will finally expose truths Kirk has fought to keep locked away. Did the family already know more than they admitted? Did Jasmine's name become a silent ghost haunting every dinner, every celebration, every attempt at normalcy? One thing is certain. Emotions ran high, voices rose, and the Frost household was left divided. And now, the world is asking, was this the breaking point for Kirk Frost's family? The night it all went down, tension had already been hanging in the Frost household like a storm cloud refusing to burst. Everyone could sense that something was about to unravel. But no one knew it would be Kirk's own son who would light the match. What started as a quiet family gathering spiraled into one of the most explosive confrontations in recent memory, leaving fans stunned and insiders whispering about the cracks that have been running through this family for years. Kirk had been trying to move on from the Jasmine drama, that dark chapter of betrayal and scandal that had painted him as the villain in tabloids and turned his home into a battlefield. But his son had grown up watching it all unfold, carrying the weight of humiliation at school, on social media, and even within his own circle of friends. It was a wound that had never healed, and on that night, it finally split open. The moment came when laughter around the table died into silence. Kirk's son slammed his hand on the counter and looked his father dead in the eye. "You think this family can just forget what you did?" His voice cracked with fury, years of resentment bubbling to the surface. "You think I can walk around with your name on my back when everybody out there is still whispering about Jasmine and that whole mess? You embarrassed all of us, Dad. You embarrassed me." The room froze. Rashida's eyes widened, caught between pain and fear of what would come next. Kirk tried to remain calm, his tone measured, but his voice betrayed the defensiveness creeping in. "That was years ago. We've moved past it. Why you bringing this up now?" But his son wasn't backing down. "Moved past it? You might have, but I'm the one who had to sit in classrooms while people laughed at me, while people called me your son like it was some kind of insult. You've never owned up to how much you hurt us. You've never said the truth." The confrontation was like watching years of silence shatter in one moment. Every word cut deeper, every accusation drawing the family further into chaos. Rashida tried to calm the situation, placing her hand on her stepson's shoulder, but he pulled away, tears in his eyes. "Don't protect him," he spat, his voice trembling. "He didn't protect you. He didn't protect me. He didn't protect any of us when he chose her." The mention of Jasmine's name was like gasoline thrown on a fire. The room grew hotter, emotions spiraling beyond control. Kirk's face turned red as he tried to defend himself, insisting that the situation had been complicated, that mistakes had been made but they had been dealt with. Yet his words sounded hollow, too rehearsed, too familiar, and his son wasn't buying it. In that moment, the power dynamic flipped. It wasn't Kirk, the father, holding authority over his son. It was the son holding his father accountable, demanding answers that had been buried under years of excuses. "Do you even understand what it's like to grow up with this?" his son asked, voice breaking. "Every time someone Googles your name, that scandal comes up. Every time I introduce myself, people remember what you did. You're not the only one who had to live with the consequences, Dad. We all did." The words hit like daggers, and even Rashida couldn't hold back tears as she watched the family unravel before her eyes. Friends close to the family later revealed that this confrontation had been building for months. The son had been quietly wrestling with his feelings, trying to bury his anger, but the weight became too much. He had seen Jasmine's name resurface online recently, a new wave of gossip rehashing old wounds, and it triggered everything he had been holding back. Fans online had no idea that behind the scenes, this was tearing the Frosts apart. The argument grew louder, spilling into accusations that Kirk never expected to hear from his own child. "You chose your pride over your family," his son shouted, "and then you pretended it didn't matter, but it did. It destroyed everything." By now, even the neighbors could hear the shouting, the raw emotions echoing through the walls of the Frost home. Rashida tried once again to intervene, her voice shaking. "This isn't the way. Please, this isn't going to heal anything." But her words were drowned out by Kirk's own defensive roar. "I made mistakes, but I'm still your father, and you will respect me." The room fell silent for a brief moment, but the silence was not pacific, was suffocating, heavy, filled with every unspoken truth the family had tried to bury. Then came the final blow from his son. A sentence that changed the energy in the room completely. "Respect is earned. Dad, and you lost mine the day you brought Jasmine into our lives." Those words cut deeper than any tabloid headline, deeper than any fan gossip or social media dragging. This was personal, intimate, and devastating. Rashida turned away, tears falling freely, while Kirk sat frozen, unable to respond. For years, he had fought to maintain control of his narrative, but in that instant, it was ripped away. His son had taken the story, laid it bare, and forced him to face the truth he had tried to bury under charm, denial, and distractions. The family was shattered in that moment, each member caught between loyalty, pain, and the haunting question of whether this wound could ever truly heal. And as the night dragged on, voices rising and falling, one thing became clear: the Frost family had been holding on to secrets too heavy to keep, and now, the world was about to see just how far the cracks ran. The argument didn't cool down after that cutting declaration. Instead, it rolled forward like thunder after lightning, impossible to stop, deafening in its impact. Kirk's son paced back and forth, his hands running through his hair, his chest heaving with every breath. He had carried this fury for so long, and now that it had broken free, there was no way to cage it again. "You always told me to be a man," he snapped, glaring at his father. "Well, here I am, standing in front of you as a man, telling you that you broke this family. You broke me. And you can't keep hiding behind excuses." His words filled the room with fire, and Rashida clutched her stomach, almost as if she could physically feel the blow herself. Kirk tried to step closer, to close the distance between himself and his son. But the younger man stepped back, shaking his head furiously. "Don't," he warned, his voice cracking under the weight of his emotions. "Don't come near me with more lies. Don't try to hug me like everything's fine. It's not fine, Dad. It hasn't been fine since Jasmine." The name echoed like a curse, reminding everyone of the scandal that had shattered the illusion of their family's unity. For years, Kirk had tried to rebuild, to convince the world and himself that they had moved on, but his son's words, the night that should have been quiet, instead became a battlefield of words and wounds as buried feelings erupted to the surface. Raw and unfiltered, with Rashida trembling as she begged both men to stop before their family was torn beyond repair. Yet Kirk and his son pushed deeper into the storm, one clinging to redemption, the other demanding acknowledgement, until the air itself seemed to shake under the weight of their accusations, Kirk shouting that he had carried the family on his back through shame and regret, his son spitting back that it was Kirk who broke it all in the first place, every word a blade cutting years of silence into shreds. Every plea from Rashida drowned in the clash of father and child, until at last, the younger Frost's bitter truth landed like a hammer. "You didn't carry it alone, we all carried it." And for the first time, Kirk had no defense, his slumped shoulders confessing more than his words ever could. Yet even that silence cracked under the son's final question: "Do you even love this family? Or just the control you hold over it?" A question that split the house in two, leaving Rashida broken in her chair, Kirk speechless in his shame, and a home so heavy with unspoken truths that by dawn it felt less like a family than the wreckage of one. The drama spilling into whispers, cousins, and finally social media, where fans speculated and chose sides. Until Kirk himself admitted the words no one was ready to hear, that Jasmine had never been just a mistake but a choice, a decision he thought he could control, a revelation that shattered Rashida anew, left his son trembling with rage, and stripped the father of any refuge in lies, for the truth had escaped. The fractures were permanent, and the Frost family now stood in the cold aftermath of a war that could not be undone. Dragged emotions, long buried, clawed back to the surface, raw and unrelenting, forcing Rashida to find a trembling voice as she begged for peace that never came. While Kirk and his son clashed like storm clouds colliding, the father grasping for redemption, the son demanding truth, each accusation sharper than the last, Rashida's pleas dissolving in the noise. Until the younger Frost's bitter truth landed that none of them were spared, none of them untouched. For they all carried the weight of choices made in secrecy, and Kirk's defenses crumbled under the question that cut deep: did he love his family, or only the control he held over them? Words that left the house heavy with grief. Rashida broken, Kirk hollow, their home transformed into wreckage before dawn. Whispers, spreading outward until fans dissected every hint, and at last Kirk's confession emerged, Jasmine not as a passing mistake but a deliberate decision. A choice disguised as control, a truth that reopened Rashida's wounds and lit fury in his son, who rejected apologies, rejected embraces, demanding a reckoning that could no longer be hidden, leaving the Frost family fractured beyond repair. Living inside the ashes of a war that had already claimed them. Thought we knew everything, he told his father, his voice icy, but apparently, there's more. And this time, I'm not going to let you bury it. The revelation sent shockwaves through the room, Rashida clutching her chest in disbelief. Kirk's face drained of color, his lips trembling as if he already knew what was coming. The suspense was unbearable. What more could be hidden? What more could Jasmine's name drag out into the open? Fans online exploded with speculation. Was there another child? Was there more to the affair than anyone knew? The Frost household was now on the brink of collapse, with secrets threatening to split the family forever. And as Kirk's son stared down at his father, the final words of that night sealed the tension in stone. You've got one last chance to tell the truth, or the truth's going to come out without you. The following day, the Frost home felt like a pressure cooker. Every movement laced with dread. Every glance sharp enough to cut. Kirk's son had made it clear, he had new information, or at least access to it, and the threat of more secrets spilling out was enough to send shockwaves through the entire family. Rashida tried to maintain a veneer of control, but her shaking hands betrayed her fear. She had stood by Kirk through years of humiliation, through whispers and ridicule, but this felt different. This felt like the edge of something no one could step back from. Kirk sat in the living room, hunched forward, elbows resting on his knees, his face buried in his palms. The weight of his choices pressed down harder than ever. For years, he had convinced himself that silence was a shield, that half-truths could protect the people he loved. Now, silence had turned into a weapon his own son wielded against him. The young man walked into the room, phone in hand, his eyes filled with a cold determination. I spoke to her, he said bluntly. The words froze everyone. Rashida's head snapped up, her breath catching in her throat. She whispered. The son nodded. Jasmine. The name alone was enough to reignite the fire in the room. Kirk's face drained of all color. His voice shook as he asked, what did she say? The son didn't hesitate. She said you never told us the whole story. She said there were things you kept from everyone, even from Mom. Rashida gasped, her eyes filling with tears that threatened to spill over. Kirk, what is he talking about? She demanded, her voice trembling but fierce. The room spun with tension as Kirk struggled to find words. His lips moved, but no sound came out. The son pressed harder, his voice like steel. You had your chance to come clean. You didn't. Now the truth is coming out, and you can't control it anymore. He tossed the phone onto the coffee table, the screen lighting up with a text message thread that made Kirk's heart stop. There, in black and white, were Jasmine's words. He didn't tell you everything. Ask him about the promises he made. Ask him about the other life he started with me. Rashida's trembling hands picked up the phone, her eyes scanning the messages, her face crumbling as she read. Other life, she whispered, her voice breaking. Kirk, what does she mean? Kirk shot up from the couch, his voice desperate. It's not what you think. But his son cut him off with a roar. Then tell us what it is. Stop hiding. Stop lying. Stop pretending like this family can survive with half-truths. We deserve the full story. We've earned it. The younger Frost's voice shook with rage and pain, his fists clenched at his sides. You weren't just unfaithful. You built something else, somewhere else, while we were here, holding this family together without you. Fans who caught word of this Twist through leaks and gossip blogs were stunned. Another life. Another family. One comment read, "If this is true, Kirk is finished." Another fan wrote. Social media ignited with theories, debates, and endless speculation. Was Jasmine bluffing, trying to stir more chaos? Or had Kirk really hidden something so massive that even Rashida had been in the dark all these years? Inside the Frost home, the fallout was nuclear. Rashida dropped the phone onto the table as though it burned her skin. She turned on Kirk, her voice trembling with fury. "You promised me that I knew everything. You swore there were no more lies, that nothing else could come out and destroy us. Was that a lie too?" Kirk's face was pale, his lips quivering, his eyes darting between his wife and his son. He knew he had run out of road. I made mistakes," he began, but his son's bitter laugh cut through his words. "Mistakes? That's what you call it. You didn't just cheat, you lived a double life. You betrayed us in ways we didn't even know about. Do you have any idea how it feels to find out the truth like this? From her, not from you." The confrontations spiraled further. Kirk's son stood chest to chest with him now, his voice rising. "You always told me a man owns up to his choices. But you've been running from yours for years. You've been hiding behind Mom's forgiveness, behind our silence. Not anymore. If Jasmine's telling the truth, the world's gonna find out, and you're the one who'll have to face it." His words carried a finality that silenced even Rashida's sobs. The night ended with Rashida slamming the bedroom door, locking Kirk out, and his son storming out of the house altogether. Kirk sat alone in the living room, surrounded by shadows. His phone buzzing endlessly with unanswered calls and unread messages. Outside, the world speculated. Inside, his family unraveled. And for the first time in years, Kirk Frost looked like a man who had lost everything: his wife's trust, his son's respect, and possibly his entire family. The truth, it seemed, was finally too big to bury. The room felt like it was spinning as Kirk's words echoed in the silence. "I can't undo the past, but I won't let it keep tearing us apart." His voice cracked, and for the first time in years, there was no bravado, no walls, just a man pleading for his family to see him beyond the mistakes. His son shifted uneasily in his seat, torn between the weight of betrayal and the undeniable pull of love. "You don't get it, Dad." The boy's voice trembled, thick with suppressed rage. "It wasn't just about you and Mom. It was about me. About us. About being forced to carry the humiliation when people whispered at school. When social media dragged our family name through the mud. You weren't the only one paying for your decisions, we all did." The raw honesty hit Kirk harder than any tabloid headline ever had, his body sagging like the air had been sucked out of him. Rashida reached out instinctively, her hand hovering over her son's knee, but she pulled back, afraid the wrong touch might shatter the fragile moment. Fans would later say this was the turning point, the exact second where emotions boiled over into something unforgettable. The tension exploded when Kirk, trying to explain himself, said softly, "I thought shielding you from the details would protect you." His son shot up from his chair, pointing a finger at him. "Protect me? You thought protecting me was letting the whole world know before I did. Jasmine's interviews, the blogs, the constant shade online, you didn't protect me. You abandoned me to deal with it alone." The words landed like daggers. Rashida closed her eyes, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. For years she had shouldered the brunt of Kirk's choices, but watching her son unravel cut deeper than any personal betrayal. The cameras of gossip, blogs hadn't captured this: the family raw, broken, and bleeding in the privacy of their own home. Then came the unexpected twist. Jasmine herself reached out. A phone call at midnight, her voice shaking as she asked Kirk's son for a meeting. At first, he refused. "Why would I give you that satisfaction? You already ruined my family." But curiosity gnawed at him. Against Rashida's protests, he agreed to meet Jasmine at a quiet cafe, the kind of place where secrets lived and whispered confessions found space to breathe. When they sat across from each other, Jasmine's usual confidence was gone. Her voice was hushed. "I never meant for you to be hurt like this," she confessed, hands trembling around her coffee cup. "I was selfish, yes. But I never wanted to be the reason you hated your father." He didn't respond at first, just stared, studying her like she was a puzzle he had no desire to solve. "You don't get to rewrite the story," he finally said, bitterness lacing every syllable. "You played your part, and now we all live with the fallout." The encounter with Jasmine sparked a new layer of drama. Rashida was livid when she found out How dare she reach out to him behind our backs? She raged, pacing the kitchen. Kirk stood frozen, realizing the situation had spiraled beyond his control. Yet again, their son, however, surprised them both. Maybe I needed to hear it from her, he admitted quietly, his voice stripped of anger for once. Maybe I needed to see her as more than the villain you both painted her to be, because if I don't face her, I'll keep facing this anger inside me, and I don't want to carry it forever. The family was stunned. Rashida struggled to process the maturity in her son's words, while Kirk battled the fear that forgiveness for Jasmine might never translate into forgiveness for him. Fans online devoured every rumor about the cafe meeting, their imaginations running wild. Did Jasmine apologize? Did Kirk's son forgive her? What does this mean for Rashida? Speculation fueled hashtags and trending topics, making the family drama a public spectacle once again. But inside the Frost household, the reality was much darker. Late-night arguments erupted between Kirk and Rashida as trust crumbled further. You let this go too far, Rashida accused, her voice sharp. You opened the door, and now she's inside our son's head. Kirk countered, I didn't ask for her to call him. I can't control everything. But his words felt empty, hollow echoes of excuses Rashida had grown tired of hearing. Just when it seemed the family had reached its breaking point, another revelation surfaced, one that no one expected. A close friend of Kirk's leaked that Jasmine had been planning to publish a tell-all book about her time with him, including shocking claims that stretched beyond their affair. The rumor shook the Frost family like an earthquake. Rashida was furious. So now she wants to profit off our pain. Is this ever going to end? Their son, however, reacted differently. Instead of rage, he felt clarity. This is what I've been saying, he told his parents firmly. You let her have power over us because you never cut ties clean. Until you both face the truth without hiding, she always own a piece of this family's story. His words left them speechless. The night that followed was unlike any before. The family gathered in the living room. No cameras, no outside noise, just them. Kirk spoke first, laying out every detail, every misstep, every truth he had withheld. Rashida cried, her tears staining the couch cushions as decades of loyalty clashed with the ache of betrayal. Their son listened, his jaw clenched, but for the first time, he felt like he wasn't being kept in the dark. By the time Kirk finished, the room was thick with silence. Then, their son whispered, all I ever wanted was the truth. Not perfection, not excuses, just the truth. Rashida reached for his hand, and after a long hesitation, he let her hold it. Kirk watched, his chest heavy with regret but also with a fragile sense of hope. The ending wasn't clean, and it wasn't wrapped with a bow. The Frost family wasn't magically healed, but something shifted that night. The air was less heavy, the walls a little less high. They knew there were still battles to fight, wounds that might never fully close, and headlines they could never outrun. But there was also the faintest spark of possibility that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way forward, not as a perfect family, but as a family that survived. And for fans watching from the outside, it was the kind of drama that kept them glued, breathless, and desperate for the next chapter. And so, after weeks of turmoil, confrontations, and midnight revelations, the Frost family stands at a fragile crossroads. The scars of Kirk's past choices, the raw anger of his son, and Rashida's unyielding resilience have left the family divided but not defeated. Fans are still reeling, whispering in disbelief over the cafe meeting with Jasmine, the tell-all book rumors, and the tense living room confessions that could change everything. Some believe this drama marks the final chapter of Kirk Frost's fractured legacy, while others insist it is only the beginning of an even bigger storm. The truth remains blurred, and emotions are running higher than ever. Will the family find the strength to mend what has been broken, or will the ghosts of betrayal keep pulling them apart? The answers may not come today, tomorrow, or even months from now. But one thing is certain. This story has captured the hearts and minds of everyone watching. From whispered conversations among fans to trending hashtags dominating social media, the Frost family's turmoil has become a spectacle the world cannot look away from. But behind the headlines and speculation are real people hurting, healing, and fighting for a future they can barely imagine. And now, it's over to you. What do you think about Kirk's choices, his son's confrontation, and Rashida's strength through it all? Do you believe Jasmine's apology was sincere, or is it just another layer of manipulation? Should the Frost family forgive, forget, or walk away for good? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because we want to hear every opinion. And while you're at it, don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next twist in this ongoing saga. Until then, stay tuned because in the world of love, loyalty, and betrayal, the drama is never truly over.